That's not how I thought I'd start this story, but it's the truth that's been eating me alive for 6 months now. I'm Sarah, 58, and until February I genuinely believed I had raised good kids. The kind of family everyone envies at Christmas dinners and school graduations. My husband died 3 years ago. Cancer, the slow kind that gives you time to say goodbye. After that, it was just me and my 3 adult children. Marcus, 32, the successful lawyer who always called twice a week. Rebecca, 29, my artistic daughter who struggled but never asked for handouts. And David, 26, my baby still finding his way but sweet as pie. I'd worked my ass off to give them everything. 40 years as a nurse, double shifts, night shifts, weekend overtime. Our house was paid off, college funds established, family vacations every summer. I thought I'd done it right. The warning signs were subtle. Marcus started asking about my will more often after his father's funeral. Rebecca began making comments about how some people just fall into money whenever she visited. David grew distant, spending more time with his siblings than with me. But they still hugged me, still said they loved me, still showed up for Sunday dinners with bright smiles and, "How was your week, Mom?" I should have known something was wrong when they started arriving together to those dinners, whispering in the kitchen while I set the table. When they'd go quiet whenever I walked into a room. Family meetings, they called them. "Just catching up," Marcus would say with that lawyer smile. I thought they were planning something nice for my birthday. February 14th. Valentine's Day. How's that for cosmic irony? I was making breakfast when the chest pain hit. Not the dramatic Hollywood kind, just a dull, crushing weight that made me think I'd pulled something gardening. I called Marcus because he lived closest, told him I felt off, and maybe needed a ride to urgent care. "Don't be dramatic, Mom," he said. "You're probably just anxious." But when I collapsed in my kitchen 20 minutes later, suddenly everyone cared a whole lot. I remember drifting in and out of consciousness in the ambulance, the paramedic's voice cutting through the fog. "We're losing her." Then nothing. Just black. Here's what I learned later. I was clinically dead for 4 minutes. For minutes where my heart stopped, where machines kept my brain alive, where my children thought I was gone forever. And in those 4 minutes they showed me exactly who they really were. I came to in the ICU 3 days later, unable to speak because of the ventilator but fully aware. The doctors were amazed. Complete cognitive function, they said. A miracle. My miracle children were standing around my bed, and I'll never forget what I heard. "The jewelry alone has to be worth 30 grand, Rebecca whispered, holding my grandmother's ring up to the light. "This could pay off my student loans." "I'm taking the house," Marcus said matter-of-factly. "I've already talked to a realtor. Market's good right now." David, my sweet baby, was rifling through my purse. "She's got like 800 in cash. Split 3 ways." They thought I was brain dead. The monitors showed I was alive, but they figured I couldn't hear, couldn't process, couldn't understand that my own children were planning my estate like I was already in the ground. I wanted to scream, to sit up and demand to know what the hell was wrong with them. But I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't do anything but lie there and listen to them carve up my life. The worst part, they weren't even sad. They were excited. Recovery became my personal hell. When I finally got the ventilator out, when I could speak again, I confronted them. God, I'll never forget the look on Marcus's face when I quoted his exact words back to him. Pure panic, like a kid caught with his hand in the cookie jar. "Mom, you're confused," he said, that lawyer voice kicking in. "You had a traumatic brain injury. You're remembering things wrong." Rebecca nodded frantically. "The doctors said hallucinations are normal after what you went through." David wouldn't even look at me. They gaslit me so smoothly, so professionally, that I started questioning my own memory. Maybe I had imagined it. Maybe the lack of oxygen had scrambled my brain. The doctors kept talking about post-cardiac event confusion and trauma-induced paranoia. But I knew what I heard. The real nightmare started when I got home. They'd cleaned up while I was in the hospital. My jewelry box was mysteriously empty. "We put everything in the safe deposit box for security, Mom. My important papers were gone. We're organizing your finances to help you recover." When I asked for my grandmother's ring, Rebecca said it was being cleaned. When I wanted to see my will, Marcus said it was being updated by his firm. I wasn't recovering, I was being slowly erased. Friends stopped calling. "Your children said you needed space to heal," my neighbor explained when I ran into her at the grocery store. They said you weren't ready for visitors. My own kids had isolated me from everyone who might have believed me. The breaking point came when I found Marcus had gotten power of attorney while I was unconscious. Emergency medical necessity, the papers said. Suddenly, I couldn't access my own bank accounts, couldn't make changes to my insurance, couldn't even get copies of my own medical records. I was a prisoner in my own life and my children were the wardens. The night I found David selling my husband's watch on eBay, I sat in my empty bedroom and seriously considered swallowing every pill in my medicine cabinet. It would be easier than watching them pick my bones clean while pretending to love me. That's when I realized I had to choose, die or fight back. I chose war. His name was Tom and he was emptying my trash can when he saved my life. I'd been watching this maintenance guy at my apartment complex for weeks. I'd had to downsize after Marcus convinced me the house was too much to handle. Tom was probably in his 60s, quiet, always nodding politely when we passed in the hallway. The morning I decided to end it all, I was sitting on my balcony at 6 a.m., holding that bottle of pills when Tom knocked on my door. "Mrs. Patterson? I'm sorry to bother you, but I heard crying through the walls last night. Are you okay?" No one had asked me that question, really asked, in months. I broke down completely. Just fell apart right there in my doorway, and this stranger who barely knew me caught me. "Come on," he said gently. "Let's get you some coffee and you can tell me what's going on." Tom turned out to be a retired police detective. 25 years on the force, specialized in elder abuse cases. Within an hour of hearing my story, he'd identified at least 6 criminal violations my kids had committed. "This isn't grief or confusion," he said, pulling out a legal pad. "This is financial exploitation and it's a felony." But more than that, Tom believed me. He didn't dismiss my story or suggest I was imagining things. He listened, took notes, and said the words I'd been desperate to hear. "You're not crazy. This is real and it's not your fault." The next 6 months were a masterclass in fighting back. Tom helped me find a lawyer who specialized in elder abuse. Not some fancy firm like Marcus's, but a scrappy public defender who'd seen this pattern 100 times. We gathered evidence. Bank records showing mysterious transfers. Photos of my missing belongings on various online marketplaces. Text messages between my kids that Tom's contacts helped us recover. The breakthrough came when we found Rebecca's social media posts. Pictures of her wearing my grandmother's ring, bragging about her inheritance while I was still alive. Tom also introduced me to a support group for elder abuse survivors. Turns out, adult children financially exploiting their parents is horrifyingly common. I wasn't alone and I wasn't weak. For the first time in months, I started sleeping through the night. Tom would check on me daily, not because he pitied me but because he genuinely cared. He'd been divorced for years, said helping me gave him purpose. "You're tougher than you think," he told me one evening as we planned our next legal move. "Your kids picked on the wrong woman." He was right. The scared, confused woman from the ICU was gone. In her place was someone who'd learned to fight dirty, and I was about to give my children the education of their lives. 2 years later, I was a different woman entirely. Tom and I had fallen in love, not the desperate, clinging kind born from trauma, but the steady, comfortable love of 2 people who'd seen the worst of life and chose each other anyway. We moved in together, traveled, rebuilt my finances, and created a life my children knew nothing about. I'd started volunteering at the Elder Abuse Hotline, using my nursing background to help other victims. Tom had taught me to golf. We adopted a rescue dog named Justice, Tom's idea of humor. My kids thought I was still the broken woman they'd left behind. They'd call occasionally, fake concern dripping from their voices, asking if I needed anything. I'd play along, let them think their manipulation was still working. But I was documenting everything. Every call, every lie, every attempt to access accounts they thought they still controlled. The reckoning came on a Tuesday. Marcus called, voice tight with panic. "Mom, we need to talk. There's been some kind of mistake with the bank accounts." I almost laughed. Tom had helped me regain control of my finances months ago. The mistake was that my kids had finally tried to access money that was no longer there. "What kind of mistake, sweetheart?" I asked, savoring the moment. "The accounts are frozen. They're saying something about an investigation." "Oh, that." I kept my voice light. "I reported the financial abuse to the authorities. Apparently, stealing from your nearly dead mother is still illegal." "Who you?" The silence stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. "You can't be serious," he finally whispered. Dead serious. Pun intended. Within an hour, all 3 of my children were at my door. Rebecca was crying, David looked terrified, and Marcus was red-faced with rage. You're destroying our family. Rebecca sobbed. We were just trying to help you. Help me. I laughed, and it felt incredible. By stealing my grandmother's ring? By selling your father's watch? By convincing everyone I was crazy? We thought you were dying. David finally spoke up. We thought. You thought I was convenient. Dead but convenient. Marcus stepped forward, and for a moment I saw the lawyer predator he really was. If you pursue this, we'll have you declared incompetent. We'll say you're delusional, that the heart attack damaged your brain. Tom chose that moment to come home, Justice trotting beside him. My kids had never met Tom, had no idea I'd rebuilt my life. Sarah, honey, Tom said, kissing my cheek. How did the meeting with the district attorney go? The look on Marcus's face was priceless. Oh, it went very well, I said, never taking my eyes off my children. They're very interested in our case. Apparently, elder abuse is a priority for them now. That's when the begging started. They asked me to forgive them. I asked them to earn it. The legal case took 8 months. Marcus lost his law license. Turns out financial elder abuse is a career-ending conviction for lawyers. Rebecca had to sell her apartment to pay restitution. David, who'd cooperated with prosecutors, got probation and community service. But the real punishment was watching their perfect family narrative crumble. Friends, colleagues, extended family, everyone learned what they'd done. The shame was exquisite. People ask me if I feel guilty about destroying my children's lives. Here's what I tell them. I didn't destroy anything. I simply stopped allowing them to destroy me. Rebecca tried to reconcile first. She sent letters, left voicemails, even showed up at my volunteer work. I was scared, she kept saying. I thought you were going to die and leave us with nothing. The truth is, I had left them everything in my will. But they were too impatient, too greedy to wait for me to die naturally. Marcus never apologized. Even after losing everything, he maintained he was protecting family assets. Some people are incapable of seeing their own evil. David surprised me. He enrolled in therapy, started working with elderly patients at a nursing home. 6 months after his conviction, he asked if we could have coffee. I can't undo what I did, he said, tears in his eyes. But I want to understand how I became someone who could do that to you. It was the first real conversation we'd had in years. I didn't forgive him that day, or the next month, or even the next year. But I watched him change, watched him struggle with the horror of what he'd done. And slowly, carefully, I let him earn small pieces of my trust back. Rebecca still sends Christmas cards, still believes that enough time and pretty words will fix what she broke. She doesn't understand that some betrayals can't be forgiven, only survived. Tom and I got married last spring. A small ceremony, just us and a few close friends. My children weren't invited, not out of cruelty, but because they weren't part of the life I'd built from the ashes of their betrayal. Here's what I learned. Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when you're broken, who believes you when everyone else says you're crazy, who helps you fight when you're too weak to fight alone. My heart attack didn't kill me. But it killed the naive woman who thought unconditional love meant accepting unconditional abuse. The woman who survived is harder, wiser, and completely unwilling to set herself on fire to keep ungrateful children warm. Some days I miss the fantasy of the perfect family I thought I had. But I wouldn't trade the reality of the life I built for anything. To anyone reading this who sees themselves in my story, you are not crazy. You are not alone. And you are stronger than the people trying to break you. Fight back. You deserve better.
If you made it this far, you're officially part of the drama. Subscribe for more, and tell me in the comments, what would you have done?